Hello, Balla ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir is joining.
Yes, I have joined.
Okay, and sir?
I'll just give him a phone call. Na?
Okay.
Okay. नूतन मैम हो रहे हैं सर ज्वाइन ना? हेलो
Ma'am.
हाँ हो रहे हैं ज्वाइन ना सर?
Okay.
जी.
Sir has joined.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
जी, good afternoon.
We will wait for 5 minutes. Let's participant will join.
Yeah.
Rakesh Patil, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Make co-host to Dr. Devender Singh and Jack Dali, sir.
देवेंद्र सिंह सर सत श्री अकाल.
हाँ जी, सत श्री अकाल.
सर की हाल है?
बहुत बढ़िया जी, बहुत बढ़िया.
Very good. Very nice to see you. Most welcome. Most welcome.
Thank you very much.
We are very pleased that you have accepted our invitation. Thank you very much. Yes.
It's an honor. Thank you very much.
Our principal sir has also joined. And
I see his
sir,
name.
Dr. Jack Dali, sir.
Yeah.
Dr. Jack Dali, BS. Yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I think sir is traveling.
Yeah, I'm on the way.
Yes. Devender Singh sir, I just want to get to know that our principal, Dr. B.S. Jack Dali sir, has received the Best Principal Award today from
That's great.
Savitribai Phule Pune University.
That's great.
Yeah, yes, sir. He's very dynamic personality.
Yeah. Very good. I'm happy to hear about that. Today he
Yes.
got that award.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Dr. Jagdale.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. It all credit goes to our faculties and students.
Yeah, but it's a leadership that matters.
Yeah, it is a leadership that matters.
I think we can start, madam.
Yes, yes, ma'am. We have to start it.
Good afternoon, one and all. Today, we are from 16th January, we have started our refresher course on challenges in higher education in India in 21st century. We have got different eminent resource person. Today also we have got a very dynamic eminent resource person, Dr. Devender Singh. He is currently working as professor in Department of Zoology, Environmental Science, Punjab University. He has done postdoctoral fellowship from UIC, Chicago, USA. He is a life member of different professional bodies, organizations. In addition to this, he has received different awards and he has published more than 180 research articles. Total 8 projects he has completed sanctioned by different agencies like UGC, DST, DBT. His work as a resource person in different refresher course conferences. Total 24 students completed their PhD under the guidance of Sir, and currently 4 students are doing their PhD. In addition to this, they have some students completed their MPhil also under the guidance of Sir. I have introduced very short biodata. He has a very big biodata, but due to the time limit, Sir has to guide us on implementation of NEP. I request Dr. Devender Singh to guide the participants. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam, for your nice words. Honorable Principal of the college, LBH Arts, Science and Commerce College, Professor B.S. Jagdale, members of the organizing committee, faculty members, I am thankful to you all for giving me this opportunity to discuss the National Education Policy 2020 with you today, this afternoon. I have special word of appreciation for Dr. Resham, who introduced me to this management. So should I start with the presentation? I'll share my screen and then we'll go ahead with the presentation.
Okay.
So I'm audible, the screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just for a brief introduction, I like to read out a paragraph about what India thinks about our education policy because we all know that education is fundamental for achieving full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting national development. Providing universal access to quality education is the key to India's continuous growth and leadership on the global stage in terms of economic growth, social justice and equality, scientific advancement, national integration, and cultural preservation. So without a proper education system, no country can prosper, and it's no exception for India. So the government of India has prepared a very elaborate document about our education policy, starting from school level to the university level. And it's commonly called the NEP 2020. So we'll try to discuss the major components of NEP 2020 this afternoon. So as we all know that the spirit behind this education policy is our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. On July 7th, 2020, the UGC organized an education summit at Varanasi. And out of the speech of Mr. Modi, one paragraph that is very pertinent to mention is about the national education policy. He mentioned that the fundamental objective behind national education policy is to bring education out of the limits of narrow thought processes and integrate it with thoughts and ideas of the 21st century. We should not only prepare the degree holders, but also develop responsible citizens to meet the future challenges. So that is the gist of the education policy as the government of India thinks about it, and the purpose behind it and the objectives behind it regarding the new education policy or National Education Policy 2020. So it is mentioned in the policy that the ultimate purpose of education is the well-being of the individual, society, nation, the human species, and the planet with all its creatures. So we take a holistic view about our education policy, that it is for whole of the world, for all, even for all the creatures existing on this earth. The University Grants Commission in 2012, they made it mandatory for all the higher education institutions to go for assessment and accreditation. And it was believed that by 2020, by the end of 2022, all the education institutions will be having accreditation from NAAC, at least with +V scale. But it has not been possible like that, because a lot of institutes still, they are not accredited, and the government is doing its level best that this accreditation process should be carried on further. So before that, the government came out with this National Education Policy 2020. So it started with an observation of the Supreme Court bench of Justices B.S. Chauhan and Justice F.M. Ibrahim Kalifullah. They said in one of the judgments, they mentioned that it is unfortunate that today education, instead of reforming the human behavior, in our humble opinion, appear to have failed to achieve its objective. That judgment was in 2013. And they further said that in comparison to early times, the literacy level has increased, but it did not result in better human value, which calls for transformation in our education system. In fact, in the earlier years, though the literacy level was not as high as it is nowadays, the human value had its own respected place in the society. It has not increased. So the Honorable Supreme Court bench mentioned that though we are trying to increase the literacy, but the value system has not increased. The value system of our education system has rather gone down. There has been no improvement. And that is why during this national education policy of 2020, lot of stress, lot of emphasis is being laid on the moral values, particularly in the Indian context. It has been specifically mentioned that we had such great universities in the earlier times like Takshila, but now none of our universities is reaching in the top universities, even in top 200 universities of the world. That is why we have to develop our education system in a way that we reach at the top level among the top universities of the world. So after 2013, when this judgment of the Supreme Court came, there were discussions and brainstorming sessions, and ultimately in July 2020, the Union Cabinet approved this national education policy. The main emphasis in the National Education Policy 2020 is universalization of education from preschool to the secondary level, as well as in the higher education sector. So in this policy, discussions have been made about education at the school level, even at the preschool level, at the college level, at the university level, and there have been a lot of changes that have been proposed than the earlier policies that were available with us before 2020. So it has been mentioned that our Indian education system, it has got problems because it has got the 19th century mindset, 20th century processes, and 21st century needs. If I mention here that our education system, it was suggested by Lord Macaulay in 1813 in the 19th century. He wrote a book, Minutes upon Indian Education. So on the basis of his book, the education system of India was established, and we are continuing to follow the same system even after 200 years. So the British established this education system with a different perspective because they wanted labor, they wanted educated labor, they wanted clerics. So that's why this education system was not giving full support for holistic development of individuals. And during the 20th century, a lot of processes, new processes arrived. Information technology was introduced in education, and the needs of the 21st century, they are completely different from that what we have during the 19th or the 20th century. So there is a conflict between the mindset, the processes, and the needs. And the NEP 2020 is trying to fulfill that gap. It is trying to synchronize the mindset with the processes and the needs so that we can have a better education system in the country. So the gist of the NEP 2020 is that it is involved in revising and revamping of all aspects of the education structure, including its regulation and governance, to create a new system that is aligned with the aspirational goals of 21st century education while building upon India's traditions and value systems. So here in this education policy, a lot of emphasis will be laid on traditions and value systems of the country. And based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capacities, both the foundational capacities of literacy and numeracy, and higher order cognitive capabilities such as thinking and problem solving, but also ethical and emotional capacities and dispositions. One thing that I like to mention here is that this word numeracy has been very important in our Indian education system. When we were studying in the schools, my generation was studying in the schools, we were having all the tables of 20 into 20 in our tips. And even we don't use computers and calculators now when we are making these calculations. And our earlier generation, my father's generation, they had on their tips tables like 1.5 1.25, quarter to 2, all these tables, they were known to them and they never used any calculators. But the new generation that has come up, because the calculators are so easily available, particularly when the calculators came with the mobiles. So this sense of calculations, this sense of numeracy has gone, and everybody is using calculators for small calculations. I was in USA in 1992, and we were laughing at the American citizens using calculators for small calculations like 10 into 15 or 8 into 7. But that is the situation that has arisen now, even in our country, that we have lost that sense of numeracy, and that has to be developed. And that's also specifically mentioned in the new education policy. So here I like to mention that this is the third education policy that has been suggested. The first education policy was suggested in 1968 when Nehru was the prime minister, that continued to work till 1986 when Rajiv Gandhi proposed another different education policy for the country. And this is for the third time that we are having this NEP 2020, and it has been mentioned in the policy itself that after 2040, after 20 years from the initiation of this policy in 2040, we'll be having a revision of this policy, so it will be applicable for 20 years, this education policy, and then the results will be seen, and according to the results, according to our aspirations, according to objectives that have been achieved, another policy will be coming out in 2040 by the government. So the focus of this national education policy is on the education system that should be rooted in Indian ethos, that is Bharat, so that we can make India a Vishwa Guru, as Mr. Modi has mentioned, that we want that our education system should be lower than none in the world, and people should be aspiring to come to the country for higher education, particularly even from developed countries of the world. So we'll take up two components of the education system. First is school education, then we'll be taking up higher education. A brief about school education we'll take up, because the teachers who are in higher education, they are concerned about school education also, because they are producing teachers for the schools as well. In addition to producing teachers for higher education, we are producing teachers for schools as well. So in school education, what the system we already have is that from age 6 to 16, it is considered to be up to the 10th level. And from 16 to 18, it is considered as the level for +1 and +2. That's the system that is going on nowadays. But in the new system, it has been proposed that when the child is up at 3 years of age, he will be preparing for his schooling in the form of Anganwadis, in the form of preschools, in the form of Balvatikas. From 3 to 6 years, he'll be in preschools. And this is actually already happening. As we know, nobody waits for his children to grow up to 6 years of age and then send them to schools. We already have a preschool system, but now it has been recognized by the government that preschools are necessary and we should be sending the children to preschools. Then there will be 2 years, class 1 and 2, from 6 to 8. That will be, these 8 years are called the foundational education, when the child will be prepared for next stage of education. Then we'll be having a preparatory education for 3 years, from class 3 to 5. From class 6 to 8, there will be middle education. And then there will be 4 years instead of 2 years that we now have for secondary education. We'll be having 4 years for secondary education. from the age 14 to 18 years of age. That is how the school education has been defined, that up to 12th grade, the child should be completing these 4 stages of foundational, preparatory, middle, and secondary education, so that he is ready to go to higher education next, higher professional education. So in early childhood care and education, the foundation of learning has to be made, that how the things have to go, how the child is to learn, how has to prepare for the further education. They're saying you should learn how to learn. Learning itself is a technique, learning itself is an art, and we should learn how to learn. That is the basic concept about having this foundational course. Then literacy and numeracy, as I've already mentioned, that it's a prerequisite for learning, and more stress will be laid on foundational literacy and numeracy. And dropout rates, they have to decrease. Dropout rates from the schools are very high. Still, as I can show you in a table, that in grades 6 to 8, if we take the average at India level, 90.9 students, they enter the school from 6th to 8th level. And from 9th to 10th level, only 79.3% students remain there. Rest of them, they drop out. And there is a big dropout after 10th, that in 11 to 12, we have got 56.5% of the students who are going for grade 11 and 12. And for higher education, in spite of all our efforts, less than 30% of the students, they are going for higher education. Higher education means whatever we have after +2 level. It may be a professional education, it may be a technical education, it may be a general education, whatever. So after +2, only 30% of the students, they have gone. About 3-4 years back, this figure was 27 point something. But because of the continuous efforts of the government, after opening constituent colleges, after opening special colleges in those areas where the gross enrollment ratio is low, we could increase it to 30%, but it has to be increased further. And in most of the developed countries, this should be around 50%. Among 50% of the students, they should be going for higher education. So by 2040, we have to increase the gross enrollment ratio in higher education from 30% at present to about 50%. Regarding the curriculum and pedagogy in schools, the schools, as I've already mentioned, they have to be changed in a new system, 5+3+3+4 design. That will help for holistic development of the learners. Holistic means all-round development. There should be all-round development. It should not be only the bookish knowledge that they attain. The syllabus should be decreased. They should be rather more stressed on learning and critical thinking rather than on reading the books. There should be learning by experiments, and the student should have flexibility in their course choices. So far as the schools are concerned, we have got a very hard and fast type of syllabus that this is what you have to study. It has to be a flexible type of the model. Of course, in higher education, up to some level, flexibility is there. But so far in schools, the flexibility is missing, and we have to increase that flexibility so that the children can go for different types of courses in their schools as well. Another important aspect that has been mentioned is multilingualism. That is, that more stress should be laid on the mother tongue. The child learns best in his mother tongue. Of course, we already have a trilingual policy that English, Hindi, and the mother tongue, they are taught at a school level. Even other subjects, they should be taught in the mother tongue. Multilingualism should be there. And there should be integration of subjects, skills, and capacities. For this purpose, a national curriculum framework for school education has been set up. They will be forming the curriculum for the schools of the country. National textbooks with local content and local flavor should be favored. Of course, it should have both aspects, national importance as well as the local importance that should be taken into consideration. Similarly, assessment system, the examination system for the students, it has to be changed so that it leads to more student development rather than simple assessment. And the students which are gifted, which have some special capacities, students with special talents, they should be encouraged. Similarly, another aspect is that slow learners should also be taken care of. There should be some special provision for slow learners so that they don't feel left out in the class if they cannot, because each individual is a unique personality. You cannot generalize the things. So there are some which are gifted, there are some who are slow learners. So the system should be such that it should have both the components, both the types of students should be taken care of in the education system. Important aspect about improving the education system is the involvement of teachers. So recruitment of the teachers and their deployment, that has to be improved, both at the state level as well as the central level. Their service environment should change. The cultural value should be imbibed. There should be continuous progression development for the school teachers as well. There is no such model so far. And similarly, career management and progression should be taken for school teachers. There are students which require special educators. There are some who has got some disadvantage. There are some students who have got some handicap. So there should be some special educators for such type of students, and approach as such to teacher education to produce the teachers that will change, that we'll discuss in higher education, that how the teaching of teachers has to change, and that we produce better teachers for the coming generations. So it should be equitable and inclusive. Inclusive means that all the categories, all the types of students, they should be given the chance for education. So far, our system has been exclusive, that a particular component of the community has remained away from the valuable, good education. So that has to be made inclusive so that they also get the chance. Efficient resourcing and effective governance for the education system. For this purpose, the schools can be established in the form of complexes, in the form of clusters. This type of technique is being followed even nowadays in some of the states, that they have school clusters, and that there is one head who takes care of several schools in his or her cluster. And for accreditation of school education, which is again a new concept, that even for schools, there should be some accreditation mechanism that we have in colleges and universities. So that is what is proposed in the education policy for schools. Since most of the audience, they are from the field of higher education, so we'll be dealing with higher education in a more elaborate way than school education. So it has been mentioned in the new education policy, national education policy, that our higher education system has got a lot of inherent problems. First is fragmented ecosystem. So we don't have a uniform system of the higher education institutes. There are some universities which are quite big. There are some universities which are very small universities. And we lay less emphasis on learning outcomes. We are teaching, students appear in the exams, but what comes out, what is the result of that teaching is never taken care of. There is rigid separation of disciplines. There was a time when the great philosophers of the world, they gave their ideas that there was no separation of disciplines. Aristotle gave his views in all the different fields of life. Then there came the time of specializations, that there was rigid separation of disciplines. But now the time has come that that separation of disciplines has to be removed. All disciplines, they can be amalgamated. There can be multi-faculty type of the courses. Another problem with our education system in the higher education institutes is that it is giving less access to underprivileged components of the society, those belonging to the lower socioeconomic groups. They are underprivileged and they are not given full access because they cannot afford to go for higher education. So they remain away from higher education institutions. Similarly, higher education institutions, they have got very low level of autonomy. A university gives the syllabus for whole of the colleges. If there are some universities which are having even thousands of colleges. So they give a single syllabus for, say, botany, zoology, for English to whole of the colleges. So that's also giving them less autonomy to develop their courses. So this is again a big problem. And secondly, we have got affiliating universities which are very large, and it is not always possible to cater to the needs of such a wide range of colleges that are affiliated to one university. There is inadequate faculty progression. We are not monitoring the progression of the faculty, how they're moving. And particularly in the colleges, there is low emphasis on research. Because our education system is like, we are giving a lot of workload to the teachers, so research cannot be undertaken. We don't have infrastructure for research, particularly for those courses, for those subjects where laboratories are required. Research in colleges is not possible. And even for other courses where research can be undertaken sitting in a library, teachers don't have time for research. During these last 20 years, when this career advancement scheme they came, teachers were supposed to undertake research. They were rather forced to undertake research. So that has generated a new problem for us, that low quality research papers have been published just to fulfill the condition of career advancement. So that has given a new dimension to the research that is being taken in our higher education institutions. And there is ineffective regulation of these institutions, starting from the top to the bottom. The regulatory mechanisms are not very effective. That is why our education system in the higher education institutions has not progressed that well as it should have, giving during the years that we have given the second education policy in 1986, about 35 years back, but we have not reached anywhere where we wanted to go. So these problems, they have to be taken care of if we have to improve our education system in the higher education institutions. So what are the recommendations of the new education policy, national education policy, that what should be done to improve the higher education system in the country? So we'll take up those recommendations and solutions one by one. First is regarding the institutional restructuring. So it is recommended that we should stop that fragmentation. the large higher education institutions should be there. No college should have less than 3,000 students. So if the colleges are there, which have got less than 3,000 students, then they should be grouped in the form of clusters. So management of clusters is much easier rather than management of the small colleges. So we should have clusters of colleges. We should have large higher education institutions with, as far as the number of students is concerned, it should be much more. Similarly, the universities and colleges, they should be multidisciplinary. There should be no college or university taking up only one discipline, and that we'll take up later on. So for the universities, it's recommended they should be undertaking graduation, post-graduation, and PhD. And universities will be classified into two categories. One, which have got high stress on research, they will be called research incentive universities. And those where research is not to that level, they will be considered as teaching intensive universities. All colleges, ultimately, they have to move to the autonomous status. They will be primarily running graduate programs, but it's not exclusive. They can run postgraduate programs also, but they will be laying more stress on graduate programs, and those colleges which are not covered under any heading, they can be directly considered as a constituent college of the university. They should not be affiliated colleges. They should be rather constituent colleges of the university. So this affiliation system of the colleges has to go phase-wise. We will be removing this affiliation system, and all colleges, either they will be autonomous colleges or they will be constituent colleges of a university. No affiliation will be there. So it is mentioned that this National Education Policy 2020 is on the trial mode from 2020 to 2040. And up to 2040, all higher education institutions should be multidisciplinary. And there should be at least one of these institutes in each district. So in India, we have got 766 districts. So it's not an easy job to have multidisciplinary higher education system, higher education institutes in all the districts. So the government will be pumping in a lot of resources to establish these colleges, in at least one in each college. So again, the gross enrollment ratio in higher education, which is about 28% now, it should be up to 50% by 2035. Similarly, single stream higher education institutions have to be phased out. There will be no engineering college, which is not taking other courses. If they are running only engineering degrees, they will not be allowed. So we'll be having higher education institutions which are multidisciplinary. Even the IITs, IIMs, they are specifically mentioned that they will have to turn multidisciplinary. And after 2035, there will be no affiliated college in the country. They will be either autonomous college or they will be constituent college of the universities. Then institutional restructuring has to be done. This is with reference to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So as you know, in the year 2015, the United Nations, they gave 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the fourth Sustainable Development Goal is dealing with education. It mentions that we should ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. India is a signatory to this resolution. So we have to develop mechanisms where we should provide quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. So maybe it may not be possible in the conventional mode. So that is why it will be laying more stress on online education and on distance education learning. So we have to have these two mechanisms. But one thing is there, the standards of open distance learning and online learning have to be maintained. There are a lot of problems with these programs. Online learning and distance learning, they have got special problems because the conventional mode, in conventional mode, we are used to teach the students, but in these open distance mode and in online mode, number of problems will be rising, so they have to be taken care of. When we talk about a university in a technical term, the university all over the world, it means a multidisciplinary institution of higher learning that offers undergraduate, graduate, and PhD programs and engages in high quality teaching and research. And you will agree that many of our universities, many of our colleges, they don't fulfill these conditions. So this system of nomenclature, like we have deemed to be university, we have got affiliating university, we have got affiliating technical university, we have got a unitary university, all of they will go, and we'll having a single term for all higher education institutions at the university level, that is university. There will be no deemed to be university, no affiliating university, no unitary university, no technical university. We'll be having a university as such in the real sense as it is all over the world. All universities, they have to take up holistic and multidisciplinary education, as I mentioned earlier also. So all branches of creative human behavior that include science, mathematics, vocational subjects, soft skills, all of them, they are considered as arts now. And their combination is called liberal arts. So in this education policy, there is much, much more stress on liberal arts in developing interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary programs under the heading of liberal arts. So that will lead to holistic and multidisciplinary education. So the human beings, they should be developing as far as their intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, and moral integrated manner is concerned. There should be development in all respects. So all engineering institutes, even IITs, will move towards holistic and multidimensional education. All IITs, they will be having humanities subjects, they will be having language subjects, they will be having liberal arts subjects. So it will be giving more options for the students to choose their subjects rather than sticking to a specified type of the curriculum, the syllabus that we are doing nowadays. So languages, literature, music, philosophy, all of them, they are required for a multidisciplinary and stimulating education. So credits, they can be earned at bachelor's level from different sources, and students will be allowed even to earn the credit through the open distance learning. So far, it's not allowed. If we are having students in a conventional program, they cannot complete some of the courses in open distance learning or even in online learning mode. But now it is really allowed. They can earn credits, and something that has already started all over the country, that universities now are giving options to the students to go to the websites. For example, you can take some courses from Swayam, you can take some courses from MOOCs, you can take some courses from Diksha, and they add to the credits of the student for getting their degrees. So it will be a combination now that they can earn credit, and even a system has been coming up. You can earn advanced credit also. Before starting your degrees, you can earn some advanced credit that will go to your academic bank of credit that we'll take up later on. So each student will be having a advanced bank of credit where his credits will be added up, and then it will be seen when he completes all his credits for awarding a degree, the degree will be awarded to the students and they can earn it in different ways as we are, that is not the case nowadays. So ultimately, we should have global standards. As far as learning is concerned, we need better infrastructure, better resources, particularly quality libraries. Libraries now not only require books, they require e-journals, they require e-books, they require access to the big websites. We require better classrooms, which we sometimes call as the smart classrooms. So we require technology support, recreation areas, discussion spaces, and even dining areas are mentioned, that these are the areas where development takes place when students undertake discussions while taking their food. That's a very important aspect of the student development. Then the assessment has to change. We have to change from simple criteria-based assessment system. We will move towards high-stake examinations. We move towards continuous and comprehensive evaluation. That has already been started. We have now, in almost all the higher education institutions, we are having midterm examinations. There will be much more than that. It will be a comprehensive evaluation system that the student is evaluated throughout his course, even on a weekly basis, even on a daily basis. The comprehensive evaluation has to be undertaken. One important aspect of this education policy now is its internationalization. Internationalization has been specifically mentioned that we should make possible for the students, if they want to visit other research institutions abroad, they can earn some credits there and they can carry out some research there. So those credits earned, they will be added to the students' credit, and they can earn the degrees by getting some credits from international institutions also as well, and vice versa also, that students from international foreign universities, they can come to India, they can come to Indian universities and they can earn some credits, and we allow those credits to be carried to the students' parent organization. So this policy, the objective is that we should be providing India as a bishop guru as it was in the prehistorical times. Indian universities will be encouraged to set up campuses in other countries as well. And those universities of the world which are in the top 50, top 500 universities, they will be allowed to have their campuses in India. And for this, the notification has already been done about 10 days back. The government of India has come out with a notification that foreign universities, they can set up their campuses in India. Some conditions have been put there. Of course, a lot of discussions are going on in the academic circles, whether it is desirable to have foreign universities in India, or it will be causing problems in the Indian education system. But as it was mentioned in the national education policy, the government has come out with a notification that foreign universities, they can set up their campuses in India, so that the students who are going for higher education to different countries, they can get it at home at a lower price than what they are paying in the international universities in their own countries. So when we want to go for internalization, so the degrees by Indian and foreign collaborators have to be defined. So there will be 3 types of the programs. with international collaborations. One is called the twinning program. So in twinning program, a student can earn up to 30% of the credits in a foreign institutes, but those credits should be earned in a course different from what he's doing in India. So those 30% of the credits he can earn from any institute, and they will be added to his result here. And while giving him a degree, those credits will be added for calculation of his overall assessment. Then there are also programs for joint degree program, where Indian and foreign higher education institutes can give a joint degree. So in this case, it is mentioned that at least 30% of the credit should be earned from each participating university in a conventional mode. I am underlining it, conventional mode. It cannot be online learning. It cannot be open distance learning. It has to be regular in-campus conventional mode. If the student goes to a foreign university, he can earn 30% of the credits, come back, and those credits will be added to him. Then another one is the dual degree program, when the students can have 2 degrees at the same time. He can get admission in an Indian university. He can at the same time get admission in a foreign university. And he can earn at least 30% of the credits from Indian university and rest of the credits from a foreign university, at least 30% from India. And depending upon the conditions of the foreign university, both the universities will give him separate degrees. 2 degrees can be earned under this Indian and foreign collaborations. In addition to that, the government has come out with a notification that the student can earn 2 degrees at the same time, even while studying in India, from 2 Indian universities. But the condition there is that there should be no overlap of the timetables. If I am studying in a particular program, the timetable should not be overlapping with the timetable of another degree, and then they can earn 2 degrees. And now, as per the education policy, the student can earn 2 degrees, one in a conventional mode, one in a online or open distance learning mode. This was never allowed earlier. So far, we were not allowing it, but now it has been allowed that you can earn 2 degrees at the same time while remaining in India. This is what the one thing that I mentioned. It is for foreign collaborations, but for Indian institutions also, 2 degree system has been introduced. So to overcome the problems, we should have a motivated and capable faculty. So faculty motivation in terms of teaching, research, and service, several proposals have been made. It has been mentioned that our faculty is not motivated because they are lacking basic infrastructure and facilities that have to be provided. There should be adequate time for interaction with students and for conducting research. This has to be taken care of. And when we have got autonomous colleges, so teachers will be free to design their own curricula. There should be rewards, promotions, recognitions, and movement into institutional leadership. So far, a person who joins as assistant professor, he retires as a professor. That's the maximum one can achieve. But now it is proposed that they should be allowed institutional leadership also, to move into institutional leadership also. And the criteria for faculty recruitment, it should be transparent, it should be quality-based. Only then we can have motivation in the faculty. Then equity and inclusiveness, as I mentioned, that socially and economically deprived groups, they have been having exclusiveness from the education system. So this education policy now says we should make some special provisions so that these socially and economically deprived groups, they can take advantage of the new education policy. They can go for education as per their cream layer colleagues. So there should be special funds for education of SEDGs. We should enhance the gender balance in admissions. There should be more preference to girl students for admissions. There are some areas which have got large proportion of these deprived sections of the society. So more colleges should be, more universities should be opened in those areas. Those sections, because they are not well versed with English, well versed with other languages. So teaching for them, it can be undertaken in local languages or in bilingual ways. And those students who have got some disadvantage, who are coming from some disadvantaged education backgrounds, they can be given some bridge courses so that they can compete with the other students for higher education. In admission processes, more inclusiveness should be made. Some reservations that, of course, they are already existing, so it should be more inclusive. And the faculty, the counselors, the students, they should be sensitized towards the needs of these deprived sections of the society. There should be no discrimination or harassment, and their employability potential should be taken care of by resorting to special mechanisms for their development. Because in higher education, we are also producing teachers for schools. We are producing teachers for colleges and universities as well. The government of India set up a committee called Verma Commission about teaching educational institutions. The Verma Commission report in 2012, they mentioned that majority of the teacher education institutions are selling degrees for a price. They are not producing teachers, they are selling degrees. So we have to develop a mechanism when we talk about education for teachers. So it should be given special care. So it is mentioned in the education policy that the teacher should be grounded in Indian values, ethos, traditions. The educational programs for teachers should be multidisciplinary and integrated. As we mentioned earlier also, there will be no education college as such. There will be multidisciplinary college, multidisciplinary universities. So we'll be having those programs. The B.Ed will be run in multidisciplinary colleges, not in education colleges now. So they can offer 4-year degree programs, integrated degree programs. It will be leading to graduation plus education degree in 4 years. 2-year B.Ed will be continuing for those students who have done a bachelor's degree in a specialized area. And those who have received 4-year undergraduate degree, they will be allowed 1-year B.Ed. For higher education, to take care of producing teachers, better teachers for higher education, from now onwards, those students who are starting their PhD, they will be required to take credit-based courses in teaching and education, which are related to the subject in which they are doing their PhD. Similarly, they will have to have a minimum number of teaching hours to gain teaching experience. A national mission for mentoring will be established where retired faculty, senior faculty, they will provide support to the teacher education. Teacher education has given a lot of emphasis because the students, they are the wealth of the country, they are the future of the country. So to teach them in better ways, we need better teachers. So teaching, education for teachers should be taken care of from this angle, as mentioned in the education policy. Then vocational education. So far, vocational education has been done only in class 11 and 12 and on dropouts in grade 8 upwards. A very small percentage of Indian workforce in the group 19 to 14, 19 to 24 has received formal vocational education, for example, 5% only. While in USA, 52% of the students, they gain vocational education. And in South Korea, 96% of the students, they gain vocational education. So that gives them more employability. That gives them starting their own profession. Because we have a problem that in India, vocational education is considered to be inferior to mainstream education. And mostly it is taken by those students who are unable to go for higher education. So vocational education will be given stress in the new education policy. So it is mentioned that every student should be exposed to at least one vocational education course that will lead to increase the dignity of labor. By 2025, at least 50% of the learners through the schools and higher education system will have exposure to vocational education. With the help of industry partnership, with the help of NGOs, and vocational education should be made available on the basis of what types of gaps are there by the analysis of those skill gaps and mapping the local opportunities available. The vocational education, same type of vocational education will not be favorable, will not be useful for all. So it has to be developed at a local level that what type of vocation should be started in a particular area. The government is going to establish a national research foundation because, as have already been mentioned, that research is lacking in many of the higher education institutions. So now we are going to develop a national research foundation, which will be guiding and giving grants for research in the higher education institutions. Research is required for growth, but for teachers, research is required for remaining in touch with the latest updates in your field. If you are undertaking some research, that research may have only academic value, but you are always in touch with the best, with the latest things that are happening. In India, research and innovation, we are spending a very small amount, only 0.69% of GDP, while in Israel, they are spending 4.3. So about 7 times more than us, they are spending on research and innovation. So research has to be interdisciplinary. We know that research all over the world, the best research is occurring in the multidisciplinary university settings. So in the same way, we'll be having multidisciplinary universities where research will be undertaken, and it will be under the guidance of National Research Foundation, which will provide funds for quality research. And it will be the other types of funding agencies, like we have ICAR funding, we have got DST funding, we have CSIR funding, we have ICMR funding. They will be there. They will be the National Research Foundation. They will be cooperating with them. They will be coordinating them so that there should be no duplication of efforts, and they will be giving up these grants to the higher education institutions. National Research Foundation will not be under the control of the government. It will be under a board of governors that will be consisting of researchers and innovators, and they will keep a liaison between the researchers and relevant branches of government so that we can undertake research at the international level. Then a regulatory system has not been very effective in the country. UGC was established in 1956. After that, a lot of other types of regulatory mechanisms have been developed, but now it is proposed that we'll having one umbrella institution, that is Higher Education Commission of India, that will be regulating the higher education of the country. It will be having 4 components, 4 verticals. One will be National Higher Education Regulatory Council. So it will be regulating all the types of education in the country except medical and legal education. So it is mentioned that the mechanism for regulation should be light but tight. It should be very specific rules to be followed, though it should not be very heavy for the institutions to follow. Second component will be National Accreditation Council. Less like we have got National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC. Instead of that, we'll be having National Accreditation Council. It will be a big accrediting body where accreditation of institution will be based on some different mechanisms. It will not be the same mechanism as we have with NAC. It will be more on the basis of institutional development plans and on the basis of self-discourse rather than on the basis of their subjective assessment that is occurring nowadays. Then third component will be Higher Education Grants Council, which will be responsible for providing grants to the institutions. Depending upon their institution development plans, they will be giving grants. And lastly, we'll be having a General Education Council, which will be framing the learning outcomes from higher education institutions, and it will be having other components, like there will be having a National Higher Education Qualification Network framework, then we'll be having a National Skill Qualification Framework, so on, so that all the types of mechanism, they can be integration, and they can be integration of vocational education into higher education. Vocational education should not be considered an inferior type of the education that we have now. So other types of council that we have, like ICAR, Veterinary Council, National Council for Teacher Education, Council of Architecture, Council for Vocational Education, so on, they will be there, but they will be having only professional approach. They will be having no regulatory role. Nowadays, they have regulatory roles. So regulatory roles will be with the commission. They will be having only professional suggestions they will be giving, and ultimately Higher Education Commission, it has to take the lead. They have to be, the regulations have to be done at the level of the National Higher Education Commission of India. Then it's also mentioned that there should be some mechanism to curb the commercialization of education. Transparent public disclosure system should be there, that all education institutions, public as well as private, they will have to disclose their financial positions. And if they are earning any money, it has to be reinvested in the education sector. They cannot take the money out for any other purpose. So public as well as private education institution, they will be at par in the regulatory regime. The fee determination mechanism, it will be determined by the government, so that we ensure that higher education institutions, they discharge their social obligations also. They are not just money minting machines like other business establishments. The governance of these institutions, all higher education institutions will become independent, self-governing institutions in the next 15 years, and they will be having their board of governance. They will be away from government control. So if there is any regulation to control them, that will be superseded, and the new regulation will come that no government control. They will be under the control of the board of governors. The board of governors will be having an eminent expert committee, which will be dealing with all the regulations. The higher education institution, they will be forming their institutional development plans. And while forming the institutional development plans, they will take into consideration, they will take the participation of board members, institutional leaders, faculty, students, as well as staff. Everybody should be taken into consideration while forming the institutional development policy of the institution. Professional education, which is now going in specific institutions. So all professional education institutions, they will have to become multidisciplinary, holistic. It has been given the example here, for example, of all the universities in the country, agriculture universities comprise about 9% of all universities. And if you take the student strength, that is only 1%. So that is loss of the resources. So that is why it is mentioned that they should be multidisciplinary, there should be integrated programs, all institutions should have all types of programs so that the resources that are available, they can be used. Bilingual education system has been recommended particularly for law, because in the courts, the general public may not be able to understand English language. So it is mentioned that the vernacular language, the local language, should be used in the legal profession, legal education system. Regarding medical education, it has been mentioned that in medical education, there should be basic understanding of other types of the systems also, other types of the medical systems also. For example, we have got Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Janani, Siddha, Ayurvedic. So all of them, a doctor doing MBBS should have some knowledge about these systems, as well as the reverse. A person going for homeopathy should have some knowledge about allopathy as well, because it ultimately helps to develop the system in a better way. Similarly, there will be no technical education institution taking only technical courses. They will all be multidisciplinary education institutions. When we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, there is a very strong correlation between the literacy rate and per capita GDP. Those countries where the literacy rate is high, they have got higher per capita GDP. Those countries where literacy rate is low, the per capita GDP is low. So not all can go for higher education in the institutions. So we can have a mechanism for adult education and lifelong learning. In 1988, the government of India started National Literacy Mission, and it increased the literacy rate up to some extent, but ultimate aim of the country is to have 100% literacy. And that cannot be possible without the involvement of adult education and lifelong learning. So that has to be done with the technology. We will have to have quality technology options, such as apps, online courses, modules, TV channels, online books, ICT equipped library. All of them, they have to be used for making the country 100% literate. That is one part of the Sustainable Development Goals. The agency which will be taking care of adult education and lifelong education, it will be National Council of Education, Research and Technology. They will be having the foundational literacy and numeracy. So they will develop the critical skills, basic education, continuing education, all of these things regarding adult education and lifelong education, lifelong learning, they have to be managed by NCERT. They will be taking care of that aspect. As our tourism department says, Incredible India. India is incredible because we have got a very strong variety of cultures. We have got great diversity of people. We have got large diversity of languages. In India, we have got about 780 languages. Out of course, only 22 are recognized in the 8th schedule of the Constitution, but other languages have 780 languages are there. And during the last 50 years, we have lost about 220 languages in India. UNESCO, United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organizations, they declared that in the world, a large number of languages are endangered. And out of those lists, 197 languages are from India. So we have to take care that we don't lose those languages. UNESCO has already been laying stress on importance of mother tongue, teaching in mother tongue. So it is recommended that higher education institutions should promote local languages, not only for basic education, but for professional, for technical education also, the local language should be promoted. In 2005, the government started National Translation Mission, in which a lot of standard books in science and technology, they were translated into the Indian languages. But that was not sufficient for us. And now they have established Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation, which will be making the material available in the vernacular languages so that the students who want to, they can study the things in their local languages. Stress is laid that Sanskrit, which has been going down, it should also be encouraged. It should be brought in the mainstream so that students can take up Sanskrit as a language in schools as well as in higher education institutions. All this is not possible without the use of technology. So National Education Technology Forum has been established, which will give ideas, which will involve the use of technology to enhance learning, assessment, all those mechanisms. So various objectives have been mentioned for the National Education Technology Mission so that we can involve technology in all of those educational requirements. During the pandemic in the last 2 years, we have used technology a lot. Because of the use of technology, we could stop the wastage of time for the students. We could keep them busy with their education. But the problem was that that technology has been quite expensive. The software has been very expensive. Not all education institutions could afford to have those types of softwares. For example, in our university, in Chandigarh University, we got one software, and the name is Blackboard, and it costed us 6 crores of rupees to teach the students for 1 year. We spent 6 crores of rupees on one software. So it has been mentioned that we should develop more softwares which are easily available, like Diksha platform, like Swayam platform, disruptive technologies, which are changing our concept about the things, how we can do about that. So artificial intelligence, virtual reality, machine learning, they should be preferred areas for PhD in case of computer education. So this is the future for Indian education system, that technology should develop and we should be having more technology intensive courses. Because new circumstances, they require new initiatives. So there are a lot of problems in online and digital education. One problem is the assessment. It's not always possible to have proper assessment. Internet connectivity is another problem. Power availability is another problem. Availability of affordable computer devices is another problem, but they have to be taken care of. Slowly and slowly, they say technology in education is a journey, it's not a destination. we are on the journey, and slowly we'll be moving towards the destination, which is having ultimate 100% literacy in the country. For online and digital education, a lot of things have to be done. So the government is going for pilot studies. We are going for digital infrastructure, teaching platforms, virtual labs. To overcome these problems, a blended mode of learning has been suggested, that we should not depend 100% on conventional mode or 100% on digital mode. We can have a blended mode of learning that has given us some better results, that if we have got a blended mode, the students can perform better, and even in the absence of all digital infrastructure, we can still go ahead with the conventional mode. And when the structure is available, up to what level the digital infrastructure is available, we can go for the digital education mode. Now, all this said and done, now how to make it possible? All those things, the new education policy, it has to be made possible. So for that purpose, there will be a Central Advisory Board of Education. This Central Advisory Board of Education was established at a time when we were under the British Empire. It was established in 1920 probably. It was stopped in 23, again re-established in 1935. And after 1935, the Central Advisory Board of Education has been in continuous existence, guiding the government, but its role has not been well documented. Now, with the national education policy, the role of Central Advisory Board of Education has been specifically mentioned, that they will be under the control of the government, under the guidance of the government, and they will be giving guidelines. Ministry of Human Resource Development, it will be redesignated as Ministry of Education. That has already been done. Now we don't have any Ministry of Human Resource Development. At the center, we have got Ministry of Education. They are taking care of education at the school and the higher education level. There should be more funding for education. So far, all public sector education institutions at the state and the central level, we are giving them 4.43% of GDP, which should be at least 6%. We should increase this grant to the education institutions. And we should provide more support for the students, like the underprivileged and socially, economically disadvantaged groups. So from now till 2040, the entire policy will be in the operational mode. And on the basis of the outcomes, we will review it, and a new policy or a revised policy will be given in 2040, depending upon what we have achieved and what is left to be achieved. As per the new education policy, the undergraduate degree programs, they will be either 3 years or 4 years duration, but there will be multiple exit options in these programs. After 1 year, a student can leave with a certificate course. After 2 years, he can be given a diploma course, and after 3 years, he can be given a degree. Similarly, in the 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor programs, they should be preferred by all education institutions. Again, there will be same options to exit: certificate, diploma, degree, and advanced degree programs. And the student will be having his credits into an academic bank of credit. So when he fulfills the condition, he can be given a particular degree, a diploma, or a certificate course. 4-year degree programs will be preferred, and in their 4th year, students will be undertaking some research. So this will be called the 4-year research degree program, which will give benefit to the students at the international level as well. As far as master's degrees are concerned, there will be 2-year programs as usual for those people who have done 3-year bachelor program. For those students who have completed a 4-year degree program, with research, there will be just 1-year master's program. And there will be 5-year integrated program where the student will be getting bachelor and master program. For PhD, the student should have a 4-year degree and should have a master's degree, or if he wants, if a student is having a 4-year bachelor degree with research, he can directly go for PhD. He doesn't have to go for master's degree. So he'll be saving 1 year out of his curriculum. MPhil programs all over the country, they will be discontinued. It has all been done. No university in the country now is running MPhil programs. The government is going to establish multidisciplinary education and research universities. They just like we have got central universities, now we'll be establishing multidisciplinary education and research universities, which will be of international standards, and students going there will be highly benefited, getting international level of higher education. So with these programs, there will be some changes in NAAC programs. Now, instead of National Assessment Accreditation Council, we will be having National Accreditation Council. And now we'll be having only binary grading, yes or no. There will be no grading system, A plus A, plana, A, B plus B. Those programs will not be there. Now we'll be having yes or no accreditation for the higher education institutions. The programs for NAAC, as we had 7 criteria. For NSC, the criteria proposed parameters have been changed. Now more stress will be on career progression and professional skills instead of having those general type of the teaching learning evaluation. Infrastructure. So these will be criteria. The details are yet to come, but these will be the criteria for accreditation under the National Accreditation Council. Multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary things, we have already discussed most of them. More focus should be on outcome-based education. In outcome-based education, we first decide what should be the outcome of a particular course and how much the student has fulfilled that outcome. So that OBE, outcome-based education, is the in thing all over the world, and the new education policy is also going to introduce the outcome-based education in Indian higher education institutions as well. That will require a lot of changes in curriculum design and assessment parameters. Ultimately, we have to increase the students' intelligence, not only academic intelligence, the pragmatic intelligence, ethical intelligence, physical intelligence, societal and emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, as well as his concept of citizenry. They have to be increased in order to have a holistic development of the individuals, so that we can fulfill the conditions, fulfill the objectives for which the National Education Policy 2020 has been proposed. So ultimate function of education as per this policy is to empower the youth to strive towards their own well-being and the well-being of their society, nation, human society, human species, and the planet with all its creatures. That's how we conclude that that is the ultimate aim of the National Education Policy 2020. Thank you very much for your patience. It has been a long talk, I know, but the policy is so elaborated that it cannot be finished in a small time. So I may have taken it long, but hope it will be helpful for the participants to understand what the country wants, what the country aspires from the new education policy. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, sir. If the participants have any query, they can put in the chat box or in the question answer session. I think there are no questions.
So they are going for the new national education policy that instead of simple questioning, it should be holistic approach that we try to understand what the policy is.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Different state having different policy for the school education, even your higher educations.
Hmm.
And the scenario of the state level powers given as per the educations. The NEP implementation in all over the India, I think there is some problems, may issues. What will be the resolution? What will be the correct things? Or which states doing well in the implementation of NEP? Or which state we can take as a role model such that other state can use that policies?
Education as a policy is in the concurrent list of the country in the constitution. So both the states as well as the central government, they have powers to make rules for the education system. So of course, because we are such a diverse country, the needs may be different, but they have made the education policy so diverse and so manageable that depending upon the needs, the states can change it. But the regulatory mechanisms, they have to be the same as they are mentioned in the policy, that how we can regulate it. Of course, the local conditions, local demands, local circumstances, they have to be taken into consideration. And states will have the powers to do that. We know there are a lot of problems, even regarding the language formula. We still have problems. But again, because it is on the concurrent list, states can have some say in the education policy.
Yeah, it is. Some states are doing very good, but some states are not taking it out. They are diluting the things, whatever they mention in policies.
Mm-hmm.
Even they have not started any initiatives to implement the NEP in that school level.
Yeah.
This is the somewhere once it is at school level, it effective implemented, then that's effects on higher education will be till later on 5 to 6 a year after.
So
Have
we are just 2 years old as far as the national education policy is concerned, and they have given 20 years for its implementation, that within 20 years, everything has to be implemented. So it will be a slow process.
Yeah.
It will be reviewed later. If there are problems, they can be solved. They can be reviewed. There can be changes, but it's a journey. It has to go.
Hope for all state will be equally and 100% use these policy frameworks. Overall, thank you, Dr. Saab. You are given elaborated from primary to higher education level, all scenario and implementation of initiative, whatever be taken at a higher education level also. Hope in future you will also always guide us on different topics.
There was a question about establishment of foreign universities. Somebody put it in the chat box. It's a debatable topic. Even now, and the academia are debating about it, that establishing foreign universities may belittle the importance of our very good national universities. But ultimately, you cannot live in isolation. Students are preferring international foreign universities, leaving aside our very good universities. So if those universities are here, there may be a competition, there may be some problems, of course, but all over the world is happening. It has to be a one village theory, like the world is one village and everything has to interact, everything should be available. So you cannot live under an umbrella that foreign universities should not be there, they should not affect our education. Ultimately, we have to compete with them. Even if they are not here, we have to compete with them. Only then our education system will improve. So we cannot escape from that competition.
Thank you, sir. Bhalla ma'am, you are having any question? Bhalla ma'am. Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Bhalla ma'am. Okay, sir. I have one question related to funding. Nowadays, UGC stop their funding, research funding. In the future, in the NEP, you explain about the NRB. NRB will give funding for the PhD as well as postdoctoralship. Can you explain in detail about that funding?
No, the funding has to be from the component of the National Higher Education Commission of India, which is dealing with the grants. They will be there. The funding that we get from other institutions like from DST, from CSIR, from ICMR, from ICR, that will also continue, but it has to be in a collaborative way. Rather, we expect when we have got National Research Foundation, that is given the responsibility of funding for research. So we can expect better funding for research for PhD as well as for postdoc research from National Research Foundation.
Thank you, sir. I think there are no any questions. Therefore, it's on behalf of organizing team, it's my privilege to propose vote of thanks. We are thankful to Professor Dr. Devender Singh, Pro Vice Chancellor, Chandigarh University, for your guidance to the participant on implementation of NEP. Dr. Devender Singh covered major topics of implementation of NEP in higher education, how students can earn different credit and take higher education. There will be multidisciplinary colleges in the future, and how the criteria of the NEP 4-year degree program are changing. Many of the topics sir covered. All of us definitely receive a valuable information which is very necessary for understand NEP policy. Thank you, sir, for your valuable guidance. Thank you, respected principal, Dr. B.S. Jagdale, sir, and organizing committee. And thank you all the participants.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you very much.
Feedback link is there. All the participants, please kindly fill the feedback link. Patil, sir. Rakesh Patil, sir.
हाँ मैडम बोलो ना.
So we can end the session now.
Okay.